Welcome again to Hain't Know News. It's the first new episode of the first new year. Well, it's not the first new year. I guess there's been, 2023 of them, and that's just since Christ was here, so, who knows how many of them. Of course, a lot of people don't understand Einstein's theory of relativity. You ask people what Einstein's theory of relativity is, and a lot of people say E equals mc squared. Well, that's an equation to how energy relates to mass and change. That's not the theory of relativity. The theory of relativity is that everything is relative to things in the universe. Like time can't be measured if mass isn't in motion. So our year is related to the Earth spinning around the sun. So that's a measurement of time, but it's actually measuring a distance as well. So you're having the movement through space, so that's how movement through space is related to time. Well, what if it took longer for the Earth to move around the sun than normal? You see, we assume it always takes the same amount of time for the Earth to spin, but we have clocks that we've made that work so we can test that, and we know. But the way the mind experiences time is completely different. I worked a job one time where sometimes you'd be working a 8 to 4 shift, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., sometimes a 4 to 12 shift. But when you worked a 10 a.m. shift to 6 p.m. shift, the day seemed so much longer. And everybody who worked that shift commented on it. I took the reason for that to be because the mind was in a fully alert state during that time period. Because if your mind is fully alert in your experience, you're taking in data faster. Well, you relate that to a time experience. The faster, so that's why time can seem to stop. Like with the birth of a child, if you're witnessing the birth of a child, the seconds can drag on. So when you become so that's another way of relativity, because the way a human experiences time is relative to how much the human is experiencing in volume. So that's Einstein's theory of relativity, that everything is relative to everything. Nothing is a universe unto itself. And this year, 2023, see, a lot of these other Hain't Know News podcasts have been about podcasts, and so a lot of podcasts were on hiatus for the holidays, and that's good for everybody that they're good for the people who were away, take a little break for Christmas. But the thing is, when people are on break, then sometimes they have a higher need for entertainment. But it's a time that holiday entertainment is what a lot of people might take in. I took in a little bit of holiday entertainment I took in some entertainment outside podcasting. I watched a couple movies, which isn't real common for me. They weren't, the only one of them that I'd say was a full-on Christmas movie was Mel Gibson's Fat Man, which I think is an excellent Christmas movie. I highly recommend that to anybody. You don't have to be a fan of Mel Gibson, but I am. And I think it's a very fitting role for Mel Gibson, modern day Mel Gibson movie, and very good Christmas. It has a good Christmas story to it. A little something for everybody. My oldest son did not like that one. He didn't watch it with me this year. He watched it with me last year. I myself saw no one for Christmas, no human beings, aside from, on a walk might say hi to somebody. Wasn't going into any stores or anything like that because, I don't have any money. I am in the job market, though. In fact, I got a call today for possibly a driving job for elderly people, driving them to their appointments and stuff. I'd be kind of like a driving Miss Daisy thing. It sounds like that's the way I'm picturing it anyhow, but, it could be pretty cool. I like old people pretty well, but I have some things I have to take care of before I can, because the vehicle I'm driving right now is actually my oldest son's, and he says he doesn't want it back, but he might change his mind, and so we'll see how that goes. I've been waiting to get my unemployment check. Now, I say that with a bit of not embarrassment, because I got nothing to be embarrassed for. I'm 50 years old, and in my life I've drawn maybe 2 months unemployment ever in all that time. So if I get this unemployment payment I've been waiting for, I think I might get it tomorrow. The holidays have held all this stuff up, and apparently I didn't file correctly the first time when I did it online. But anyhow, I might get that tomorrow, in which case I might set things in motion to get a job. But I got other things going on in my life. I hate to make this podcast all about me this time, but I got to, because that's really what's what is Hain't Know News is my life right now, because things are sort of on the back burner. I got a court date coming up on Friday. All I can really say about that is that I am innocent of wrongdoing in the way I view it, and I hope that if it comes to a jury situation, I hope the jury finds that to be the case too. Most people who know the full situation in it, in fact, I think maybe all the people who know the full details of it, believe that is the case and have stated that's the case. And so I got some things working for me there. But the thing is, with the legal processes, legal system is very busy. They've got a lot of things they got to take care of, and when you have anything that goes on in the legal process, you'll find that it works. It tends to work. My experience is it tends to work if you follow through with it, but it's not fast. It takes time, because there's a certain amount of volume that they've got to deal with, and that's just where that stands at. So I've gotten frustrated with it a couple times, because the incident happened back at the beginning of May, and now we're at the beginning of January. Well, I found out, and this is just a piece of knowledge for everybody that I learned this year, is that the Sixth Amendment, which guarantees a quick and speedy trial, that in modern day, the way that's considered is up to a year. It can be up to a year before that takes place. So we're still well within that. So there's been no, nothing I can outright complain about with the police officer who arrested me. I can't really. I've talked to him since then, and I don't have hard feelings. I think he's actually a good person, and I believe I should have been arrested? No, I don't. But I also feel like the way he was given information, and he's not a judge and jury, and he's a young man that he believes it's his job his part of the legal system is to move it on to the next phase, to where it can be decided by a judge and jury, and that's what he did. And so that's where I'm at, and I'm hoping for the best in that, and I'll deal with it. And but that's so things are kind of on a back burner with me right now. And it's rough. It's frustrating, but let's just say nobody was hurt and nobody was killed, and nobody was no sort of crazy sex crime or anything like that, and no thefts. So that's really about all I can say. So what else has been going on? There were a couple podcasts I watched. Bad Friends is one I haven't mentioned on here before. Andrew Santino I have mentioned, and Bobby Lee I mentioned them, not to a degree, and not in such a positive light, unfortunately, because I really love Bobby Lee and love Andrew Santino, and their friendship is, I think, it's called Bad Friends for a reason. It's good to watch because it's how real friendships actually are. It's a struggle to maintain a friendship over time. An older person gets, and the successes and all these things that increase a person's ego can also tear people away from their relationships at times. And so I'm glad that they keep struggling through with it. Every time they make another one of those podcasts, it's always good. It's probably, it might not always feel good to them when they put it out or while they're making it, but lots of times it does, because you can tell that they're having a good time. And it's always, I've never not enjoyed watching one. The Real Ass Podcast, the RAP Podcast with Luis Gomez and Zach Amico was very active during the holidays, and that was very enjoyable. All of those were good, every single one of them. I just watched a podcast tonight, Fighter and the Kid, and there's an assistant for Brendan, a young fella named George, and I wondered about him the last few times I watched it, because there's Brian Callen mentioned that Brendan was helpful to people, and people didn't realize what a kind soul he was and how he liked to help people. And I was reminded of when he brought George, his assistant, on some time back, and told the kid he was going to keep him on working for him. And the boy was so excited that he teared up a little bit. And but anyhow, when Brian was talking about him being having a good heart and how he liked to help people, I thought back to that young man, and then tonight he had him on the podcast, and he's all in shape now and getting ready for an MMA fight, and seemed really upbeat about that. So that's good to see. It's the holiday seasons. It's nice to have good things to talk about, and because there's so much in. People don't report good news. The news isn't really set up to report good news, and I think people get so down and out sometimes that everybody wants to make their mark in the world, and sometimes I'm afraid that the news is so tuned in to exploiting negative acts that people who want to get famous and want to make news find that their way to make their mark on the world. If they're having trouble making their mark on doing good things, they can easily make their mark by doing something horrible. But it's a horrible mark, and it's not a good way for any legacy that you want to leave behind, I wouldn't imagine. So that's a shame, and so maybe it's a shame that we make it so easy for bad news to be news, and I wonder if there's not something we could do about that. Of course, people need to know about dangers and whatnot, but to be tuned in to fears and doubts all the time, I don't think that is a good thing. I think that, information is good. News is something, people don't always, it could be more of it being positive fitness things and stuff like that. And see, that's what a lot of podcasting is. It seems all fun and jokes, as I've mentioned these things, and it gets mentioned that people are watching podcasts, it's a wasted or trivially wasting time, but there's a lot of good information being exchanged through these formats that really aren't expressed in the news. And so so far we're only about 13 minutes in. Let me see if there's anything else I've got to say here. I will say that as I've been unemployed here. I hate to say it, hate to confess this as well, but I filed for food stamps, and I was approved for food stamps, and I got a food stamp balance, but I still haven't got my card in the mail. Now, this isn't why I'm not mentioning it to be like, I'm hungry and this and that, because I haven't been hungry. I've eaten from a box that outside of a church that people put blessings in, so that there's been a lot of beans and stuff like that in there, and it has been good sustenance. And so I want to thank the people, anyone who's donated to that. And when I do get my food stamps, I want to fill that box up with some healthy food. And so me pronouncing that in this podcast, that will remind me to do that and repay that kindness back to whoever it might benefit, because I've definitely benefited from it. And it's something that I wanted to say is that when you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, because, there's not always food in there. But when there is, and when you have food, it's once you got the mindset of the struggle of life being for food, it's so easy to revert to sort of an animalistic eating habits where you eat like a bear, like, here's 10,000 calories, I'm going to eat them all because I've been wanting to eat, and so you don't necessarily eat healthy. And that's what, if I can contribute some See, when you know where your next meals come from, yes, when you got plenty of food in the cupboards, you do to a degree have a possibility where you could be, if you just ate everything that you had, you'd be getting really super fat. But you can also, where you can have several meals set back, then you can plan your meals out because you know you got tomorrow's food, so you can set out a dietary plan, and you can have time to sit back and think. So either way, a person has to use their mind and logic when it comes to eating. But when people look at say a homeless person who says that they're begging for food, and you look at them and they're fat, and you might think, well, that person can't be hungry because they're fat. And that's kind of what I'm trying to explain here, is that when hungry people might sometimes be fat because they're thinking like a bear thinks, like they're just going to consume as many calories as they have access to, because they don't know. It's like the body starts to think, to do, like, you take advantage of all this food that you can. So that's all I really got to say tonight, and everybody enjoy a happy New Year's. One New Year's wish I have for everybody is, for this New Year's, I'm wishing everybody a close encounter. Good night.